In a town forgotten by time, a centuries-old chapel stood, its secrets held within cracked stained-glass windows. The locals, their voices low and fearful, would whisper a warning to any who would listen. No one who rebuilds that altar ever lives long. The old stone had crumbled, a testament to years of neglect, but the fear it inspired was as solid as ever. But fear was not a currency that swayed the new pastor, Father Elias. He arrived with a heart full of faith and a determination to restore the church to its former glory, starting with the very heart of his superstition, the altar itself. He saw only decay, not a curse. He saw a duty, not a warning. And in his righteous conviction, he would soon learn that some warnings are not meant to be ignored. Ignoring the hushed, desperate pleas of the villagers, Father Elias hired workers and gave the order. The restoration began. As the men strained, lifting the heavy, ancient marble slab of the altar, a sudden, unnatural gust of cold wind extinguished the candles, plunging the nave into momentary darkness. A collective gasp echoed in the hallowed space. There, in the hollow beneath where the slab had rested for centuries, was a sealed iron chest. It was black with age, its surface covered in strange, unsettling runes that seemed to writhe in the flickering light. A palpable tension filled the air, a sense of trespassing on something sacred and forbidden. Elias, though visibly unsettled, commanded the workers to leave the chest untouched and continue their work around it. But the discovery had planted a seed of curiosity, a dark fascination that began to fester in the quiet corners of his mind. The chest sat there, silent and imposing, promising answers to questions no one had dared to ask. That night, sleep offered Father Elias no peace. He was awakened by a sound faint, but unmistakable. Footsteps echoing from the direction of the altar. Cautiously, he made his way through the darkened church, his own footsteps swallowed by the oppressive silence. He found the iron chest no longer sealed. It was slightly ajar, a sliver of profound darkness beckoning from within. His heart hammering against his ribs, he peered inside. He saw yellowed bones, brittle with age, carefully wrapped in the decaying remnants of priestly garments. Beside them lay a crucifix, blackened as if it had been held in a fire. As he stared, frozen in a mixture of horror and disbelief, a voice, no more than a whisper, slithered from the chest, coiling around him in the cold air. "You have broken the seal." The words were not just heard, but felt a chilling vibration that settled deep within his soul, a cold premonition of the terror he had just unleashed. The following morning, the curse began to stir from its long slumber. A heavy church bell, silent for years, began to toll on its own, its mournful clang ringing out across the quiet town, a grim announcement of what was to come. Inside the chapel, shadows danced with a life of their own, twisting into grotesque shapes behind the stained glass saints. A sickness, swift and unnatural, began to spread through the parishioners. During prayer, their eyes would suddenly darken, becoming pools of inky black before they collapsed. And then the symbol appeared. A strange, vine-like mark, identical to the runes on the iron chest, began to burn itself onto the church walls, spreading like a dark infection. It was the mark of the buried priest, a signature of his eternal rage. The holy space was no longer a sanctuary. It had become a vessel for a growing, ancient evil, turning faith into a conduit for fear. Driven by a desperate need for answers, Father Elias locked himself away in the town's dusty archives, poring over centuries of forgotten records. There, in a brittle, leather-bound journal, he found it. The hidden history of the church, a story of sin and betrayal. Centuries ago, a jealous priest had murdered a rival preacher, a man beloved by the townsfolk for his wisdom and grace. To hide his monstrous crime, the priest had sealed the body in an iron chest and buried it beneath the very altar where he would continue to preach. His sermons of blasphemous lie spoken over a hidden grave. The new altar was built over the crime scene, a blessing to mask the blood that had been shed. The curse was not the work of some demon, but the dying prayer of the murdered man, a desperate plea to God that the truth should never be allowed to rest peacefully beneath a foundation of lies. Elias now understood. He hadn't just disturbed a grave, he had disturbed a righteous vengeance. That night, the full weight of the curse fell upon Father Elias. The vengeful spirit of the murdered priest, its rage honed over centuries of silent suffering, sought a vessel to enact its justice. As Elias stared into the basin of holy water, his reflection began to distort. The face staring back at him was not his own, but that of a stranger with eyes burning with ancient fury. The possession was complete. The spirit's voice, layered and chilling, erupted from his own mouth, commanding him. Finish what was started. Cleanse the altar. His own voice became a discordant echo to souls trapped in one body, one fighting for control, the other screaming for a final, terrible reckoning. The church had become his prison, his body a battleground, as the line between the divine and the damned was horrifyingly erased within him. Just as all hope seemed lost, a visiting nun, Sister Mara, arrived at the parish. Gifted with a sensitivity to the spiritual world, she immediately sensed the profound darkness that had consumed the church and its pastor. She found Elias standing before the altar, which now pulsed with an eerie, internal glow. He was chanting in a language she didn't recognize, his voice the dual-toned instrument of the possessing spirit. As she approached, the very floor of the church began to crack and splinter, and a dark, cold mist billowed up from the depths beneath the altar. Holding her simple wooden cross before her, its presence a stark contrast to the overwhelming evil, Sister Mara cried out, her voice filled with unwavering faith, "Truth shall unbind the dead. In God's name, be free!" From the mist, the spectral form of the murdered priest emerged, its ethereal finger pointing, not at the altar, but directly at the soul of Father Elias. The final confrontation had begun. In that moment of ultimate spiritual conflict, the church itself seemed to pass judgment. A cleansing fire, holy and impossibly bright, erupted from the altar, engulfing the entire chapel in an instant. The flames licked at the walls and pews, yet nothing was burned, no one was harmed. It was a fire of purification, not destruction. The iron chest at the center of it all glowed white-hot, melting away into nothingness, and the bones within turned to fine, sanctified dust. As the last embers of the spectral fire faded, Father Elias collapsed to the floor, the spiritual parasite violently expelled from his body. He was exhausted, but he was free. A voice seemed to echo in the sudden, peaceful silence that followed, a final piece of wisdom born from the ashes. Every altar must face the truth it hides. The curse was broken, not by rite or ritual, but by the irrefutable power of truth brought to light. Weeks later, the church stood renewed, not just rebuilt, but reborn. The air was clean, light streamed through the stained glass windows, and a quiet, gentle peace had settled over the town. Sister Mara walked to the spot where the iron chest had once lain hidden. She placed a single white rose on the newly laid stone, a simple tribute to a soul finally at rest. A young child from the parish, seeing the gesture, looked up at her with innocent eyes and asked, "Was the church really cursed?" Sister Mara smiled, a gentle, knowing expression on her face. She looked from the child to the light-filled altar and said softly, "No, my dear. It was only cursed when men decided to lie to God. The true foundation of faith was not stone or marble, but the truth itself, now finally restored. Every truth buried beneath an altar of lies will one day rise."
Thanks for watching UCtoons, where stories come alive. From African folktales to global cartoons, there's always something new to enjoy. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Find us easily on YouTube at UCtoons-C8G.